Welcome back to the 10 Tenets of Transparency. I'm Dr. Rob McKenna, and Tim Wenzel has decided to let me actually start this one. So that's why
it sounds so much better, bro.
The best radio voice I have. So ridiculous. Okay. And I did change my shirt again just to pretend. It's pretend time. So
let it go, bro.
Transparency. All right, Tim. So we've been dealing with the risk. That's where it came of our series on the risk of transparency, right? And number 7 and 8. And I wanted to leave this one off because I really want to hear your thoughts first. So I'll frame them up. Number 7, motive and intent matter. Okay, I'm going to say it again. I just want to know, where does your brain go? Motive and intent matter was tenet. You got to say it right because then you spell it wrong. And intent matter. And then number 8, that it involves myself, my relationship to you, and even my relationship to my environment.
I struggle to see that these are actually separate because they kind of blend together, right? So, motive and intent matters because it's how we interact with other people, right? I can give you direct feedback and I can literally say basically the same thing, but deliver it 2 different ways. One inspires and made you feel cared for, and the other pierces you. So motive and intent matters because how do we want to lead? How do we want that relationship with others to go? And, as leaders at different times, we may want to inspire in different ways. So your motive and intent can actually shift from circumstance to circumstance based on how you want to influence people. So a lot of people may use transparency as an intimidation factor. You know what? You really want the whole story on what's going on? I've been through this and I've been through that and I did this and I did that.
Interesting.
And that's not really inspiring me. That's letting me know, like, hey, you better back away because I have experienced so much more than you could ever.
Yeah.
So does that make sense? That's kind of where my mind.
It does. I was, and quite frankly, this one also came up. This was one of my dad. This is one that came from him. And he mentioned it, and it was interesting too, because I described an experience I had to him. And when he described what he thought was my intent, I really didn't think he was right. And so it was interesting how we got into disagreement about what he thought was my intent in sharing with someone else. I was telling him a story, but that's kind of beside the point, maybe. But I think his point was like, it was kind of what you said. It's like, could transparency, like could true transparency with the wrong intent or motive be used for evil things?
Let me ask you a question. You're married, right?
Yep.
I'm married
25
too.
years.
Have you ever used transparency as a brush off pitch?
Come on, Tim.
Whoa. Because I
know this is not going to get personal.
Totally never done that.
Oh, I got my snow skis in the background, so I get to ask the hard questions.
No, but I mean, think about it, right?
Yeah.
So motive and intention is so important. Now, I would say you talk about intention a lot, doing things intentionally, right?
Yeah.
But that motive and that purpose really comes into play.
Well, I did a little bit of work on this. I wrote some pretty good stuff years ago that I never quite fully baked, and it actually might go into a book. Like I actually tried to, because I'm like, I wrote something about this. And what I was writing about at the time was, could emotional intelligence be used for evil purposes?
Oh, for sure. It's
right.
And
yeah, you're like, of course. It's not even interesting.
I can tell you 100 ways that I've done it.
Yeah, or it kind of, and the example I used was kind of the used car salesperson. You know what I mean? Like it's the person who kind of knows how to read the room really well and read you and read your emotions, and then uses it for a certain motive. And so it's kind of interesting to think about transparency. And then is it transparent? Okay, let's go into the
I mean, I think,
boy, transparency and motive. Wow.
How do we want our relationships to be? How do we want to live in our relationships? How do we want to feel in our relationships, right? And so there's an intent that I have on every relationship. I want this to be a positive, fun, good relationship. But I don't always get what I want,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's some people that just do not get along with me. Or
Yeah.
maybe I just have a hard time getting along with them. And even though I intend for one thing, I'm getting another. But does that mean that that relationship can't still be used for good?
Yeah. Do you this kind of leans into number 8, which we kind of are tying these things together around this relationship to you and relationship to things or environments. I think it's a very interesting thing that um there are times when I have shared that's interesting. I'm trying to think if there are times when I have shared things where my intent was pretty good. You know what I mean? I think it was for the right reasons, but that I still regret it.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Where it didn't I just wish maybe I had taken a moment because maybe my audience was not ready to process what I shared yet.
yeah.
And isn't that interesting?
And there's another way of looking at that too, right? So
Yeah.
I'll tell a quick story. Now that this year we've been back in person for the first time in a long time, not too long ago, I ran across somebody at work who my last experience with several years ago was not great. In
Hmm.
fact, it was bad. And
Hmm.
actually, when I saw that they were going to be in a meeting that I was going to be in, I was like, and in
Hmm.
fact, this founder and creator of the Kindness Games talked to my colleague and was like, this guy's going to be here. Watch out. Here we go. And you know
Hmm.
what? Like
Hmm.
I had that moment to where I was a little bit dreading it, but also completely expecting things to continue the way they had. And we
Yeah.
got into that meeting, and that person, we saw them, that person shared and everything. And during the meeting, I was thinking, like, he looks really like well, like he looks a lot better than the last time I saw him. Like there's a different whole vibe and
Yeah.
ambiance surrounding him, right? And then
Uh-huh.
afterwards, he came up, he was like, hey, it's good to see you. I gotta go, but I just wanted to make sure I said hi. And he left. And I was like, super interesting. And
Huh.
then a couple days later,
Huh.
we ran across him again. He was like, hey, I would love to have coffee. Are you gonna have time? I'm like, yeah, we can make some time whatever day. And and then I talked to my buddy again. I was like, I feel like he's really making an effort here. This
Huh.
is this is interesting. And he looks really good, like different. And we ended up having a really great conversation about different things, which took us to the place where, he actually brought up what had happened before. And he was like, man, I was in a really bad place. And like, it's been bothering me for the last couple of years that we left it that way. And
Hmm.
so, had I avoided it, had I gone with my gut instinct, first of all, I would probably still have the same feeling. Second of all, I may have deprived him of the opportunity to make things right. Isn't that
Wow.
interesting?
It is. It's you're talking. You got me thinking about the process of transparency. Like it's not just a one-off moment. Like it occurs through different multiple interactions, possibly. You
Yeah,
know.
and if we just write off bad relationships as bad relationships, I think good can still come out of them. Even if we have bad relationships that are not getting better, we can still inspire people that don't really like us
Yeah.
if we have the proper motivation and intention.
Do you think, Tim, that if let's say in a situation you did have the right motive, are we as leaders responsible for people's interpretation of that transparency? Because there are people in the world who would say like, no, you just be yourself, you do you.
You,
So yes and no.
here's the thing, right? Um, if we are going to lead, right, we have a response of people for the people that are following us, whether they want to follow us or they're told to follow
Yeah.
us. And it kind of brings me back to this passage in the Bible where Paul's talking about, like, hey, like you may be doing this thing and there's nothing wrong with it, but if it causes your brother to stumble, like don't do it because you're not being kind to them,
Hmm.
right? and it becomes a malicious act, even though there's nothing wrong with it. So if I know that my message or my persona is landing wrong with people, like, hey, not everybody digs Tim the way Tim shows up. It's just how it is. And so it becomes incumbent to me to clarify and maybe dial it back a little bit when I'm around them, to titrate to affect a better outcome.
It's good.
And actually maybe have that conversation, be like, you know what? I know I tend to I feel I tend to rub you the wrong way. I really want you to know that's not my intent. And like if there's anything that I can do when we're together in a working relationship, etc., like let me know, because I don't want to preoccupy you with how
Yeah.
I am. I would rather preoccupy you with the task at hand.
I really hope people feel affirmed in this because we open up a lot of questions, but I hope people feel like, oh, I'm not the only one. That's what if there's with all these conversations. So
Yeah.
so good. Thanks, man. Till next
Awesome.
time.